There are still plenty of seats, so if you've got buddies who are not here yet, tell them to come on down. And the good news is it looks like we're going to have plenty of food for everyone, even if you didn't register. So definitely tell your buddies to come on over. Okay, so I am going to bring up Dr. Moody Altamimi again. She will introduce our next speaker. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Michelle Buchanan, the Deputy Director for Science and Technology at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I'd like to just spend a minute to go over her extensive bio. I'm sure you'll find it as inspiring as I usually do. As a Deputy for Science and Technology, Dr. Buchanan oversees one of the nation's most extensive portfolios of research and development, spanning physical and material sciences, energy and engineering sciences, computing and computational sciences, biological and environmental sciences, neutron sciences, and global security for the U.S. Department of Energy and other sponsors. Before assuming her current position in October 2017, Dr. Buchanan was the Associate Lab Director for Physical Sciences for more than a decade. She served as Director of the ORNL Chemical Sciences Division from 2000 to 2004, and as the Associate Director of the ORNL Life Sciences Division from 1999 to 2000. She initiated the Center for Structural Molecular Biology at ORNL, serving as its director from 1999 to 2003, and led the Organic and Biological Mass Spectroscopy Group in the Chemical Sciences and Analytical Sciences Division from 86 to 1999. She joined Oak Ridge National Laboratory in 1978 after earning a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry from the University of Kansas and a PhD in Chemistry from the University of Wisconsin. Dr. Buchanan is the author and co-author of more than 150 scientific publications and reports, holds 2 patents, and was editor of a book on frontier transform mass spectroscopy. Dr. Buchanan is a fellow of both the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS, a fellow of the American Chemical Society. She currently serves as the counselor for the Division of Analytical Chemistry. She currently serves on the board of directors for Brookhaven Science Associates, Oak Ridge Associated Universities Orao, and the Oak Ridge Methodist Medical Center. Over the past decade, she has worked at the national level, helping define basic research needs in a number of key energy-related areas. Thank you, Dr. Buchanan.
Well, thank you, Moody, and thank you to the organizers of this event, especially the folks from ORISE. It's always great to have the opportunity to talk to early career people about their future. I know a lot of you guys are, here for the first time. How many here are here for the first time? Yeah, so this may be the first time you've had the opportunity to do research, and I'll tell you, that was a way in my life that really changed my career, was when I first started doing research, okay? As Moody said, I went to the University of Kansas. I was a first-generation college student. Neither of my parents graduated from high school. They were part of the World War II generation where my father went to the service and my mother got married early, okay, and had kids after my father came back from the war. So when I went off to college, I didn't really know what to expect. And so I went into my college career and luckily found a very, very talented professor who was just inspiring. And I think that's probably the way that you guys found your way into a career, that you found a professor who made the subject that you're in sound like the best things since sliced bread, and you just got inspired, okay? You just had to get into that area and do that. I liked my classwork, but it wasn't until my sophomore year that I had the opportunity to do undergraduate research programs. This was an NSF-sponsored program at my college, and I actually got to see science in action, and I think that was a real change. I thought, well, analytical chemistry is just, doing pipettes and burettes and titrating and looking for phenolphthalein changes and stuff like that. It was pretty boring. But then when I got into research, I realized what a great career this could be for me. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how my career evolved from that point on to where I am now, okay? And like I say, it had a lot to do with my professors. And I think one of the things that you guys should do is think very hard about that mentor who can help you traverse your career, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. It's very important, okay, to find somebody who believes in you, who wants to support you. It may not be the person that you're working for. It may be somebody else in the department that helps you. And when I got through with my undergraduate degree, I was looking towards the end, and I had so many credits. I took some graduate courses, and I did a lot of research. So I was just a few hours away from getting a master's degree at Kansas, and I sat down with my friendly group of mentors, and they said, nope, we're not going to let you stay. We want you to go out, get a diverse perspective, go to another school, because we've taught you all we know, okay? It's time for you to go out and hear something new from other people, get a different perspective. It'll make you a stronger scientist. So they sat me down, and they said, okay, where do you want to go to school? And I said, well, I didn't know anything because I didn't have anybody in my family who could help me. And I was from Kansas City, Missouri, okay, on the Missouri side. I was going to the University of Kansas, and my parents wanted me to stay close to home, as is the want of most parents. I was a good child, okay, so they wanted to keep me close to home. And my parents kept on saying, well, what's wrong with the University of Missouri? And there's nothing wrong with the University of Missouri. It's a fine school. But my professor says, you need to go out and go someplace distant and go to the best university you can think of, but go away, okay? So I applied to about a half dozen graduate schools, got into all of them. I got into some very good schools, Berkeley and University of Chicago and Purdue and all these different places. But I ended up going to Wisconsin because I felt like it was a different place. It was a different place than I had been before, and I liked the professors. And I would tell you, always find a friendly place that you think you fit in, where you think you'll fit in with the students. When you choose a graduate school or you choose a research group, talk to the students, because they'll tell you the skinny on the mentor, okay? And they'll tell you who pays attention to their students and who doesn't pay attention to their students. And you can survive without a professor that pays a lot of attention to you, but I wanted somebody who would, kind of help me through the process. So I found a really good professor, and he was challenging. He would challenge my thoughts and why I was in graduate school, and when I had trouble passing some of the exams, the qualifying exams, he challenged me and said, well, maybe you shouldn't be in graduate school. Maybe you should just go teach high school or whatever. He challenged me with something that would just make me more determined to be successful. So he was the perfect mentor for me. And some people didn't like his fatherly advice. I did. And so it was a good experience for me. But I think the graduate school process, I found a lot of friends in graduate school that are my lifelong friends, okay? Graduate school is kind of an interesting place because you don't have classes anymore. Once you finish your classes, you can do work kind of at your pace. You can go off and, take a bike tour around the lake or, sit out on the grass and do whatever you want to do, or you can work real hard, or you can do both of them. And it's a transition time for you guys to understand how you do your research career and get started. So it's a really good way to get going in your careers, to try to pace yourself, to balance. It's the first time you have to balance your career with your private life, okay? So when I was in graduate school, almost everybody, I'm really old, okay? So I came here in 78. So when I was in graduate school, it was the end of the Vietnam War, and you guys are too young, but maybe your parents were in the Vietnam War. And a lot of people were in graduate school at that time because a lot of people were looking for deferments, so they didn't have to go to the war. And so there were a lot of people in graduate school. So when I went to graduate school, there were 100 people in my incoming class, 4 women out of 100. So it was very different, okay? I was the only woman to graduate in my class, okay? It's amazing, okay? Nowadays, when you go back to graduate school, you guys know, in most departments, it's about 50-50, which is the way it should be. But back in those days, it was a lot of men, and so I got to learn how to work with all sorts of different people. But I got very comfortable having colleagues that were my buddies and things. One of those buddies I married. Okay, so I met my husband in graduate school. He's a chemist. He was a group leader here until a few years ago, and now he's retired. But it was really interesting. I felt like when we left graduate school and started looking for jobs, we did not have, the university system was not very open to two career couples. Okay, it is now. Okay, so my husband and I started looking for jobs, and we looked for jobs where we both could find a position. Okay, that we both would have challenges. Okay, and we decided we may not get number one job and number one job. We may have to compromise. It turned out that we both got our number one jobs here. Okay, because we wanted to do research, and this was a good place for us to do research instead of going to some company making soap, and we'd have to become managers, because that was the last thing from our mind was to become a manager. We wanted to be a career scientist. You can see where I am. So anyway, but the fact of the matter is we were able to find jobs. It's a stressful time in anybody's life as you guys go through your career, as you find your soulmate and to go through life with, to try to find that career. And that's one of the things that I would recommend, that you talk to your professor, you talk to people that can help you through that, because it's a tough decision, okay? I developed migraines during that time of my life because I was really stressed out, and that stress that you feel in graduate school is all over the place. And one of the things I wanted to let you know is don't be afraid of stress, okay? Go talk to somebody, okay? Don't feel embarrassed to admit to somebody, maybe not your professor, because I know a lot of times you don't want to talk to your professor about the stress you're feeling and the uncertainties that you're feeling in your life while you're in school, because a lot of times you think, well, if I go tell my professor that I'm not sure about what I want to do, that person will think less of me, and maybe I won't get a good, a good letter of recommendation or something like that. A lot of schools set up what they call safe mentors, and so their mentor that's not in charge of you, but there's somebody that you can go talk to. And if your school doesn't do that, find one. Find a friendly face in your department or outside your department that you can talk to, because everybody has, especially third-year graduate students usually get the nervous knees. What am I going to do? How am I going to get a job? And they get really uncertain about themselves. And to help you get through that, please go talk to somebody, okay? Because there's people at your university you can talk to. And I know I had that kind of weird feeling, and I was able to talk to my professor because he was an open sort of guy. But do think about that as you go through your career. But we found jobs. It was great. We were able to come here to Oak Ridge. My husband dove in the deep end, and he got into his research group real fast. I came here, and it was like, okay, now what are we going to do with her? Because, they didn't really have what I was doing, okay, what I got my PhD in. They didn't have much going on here. So I had to kind of start my own area. So I got into mass spectrometry. I had done a little bit when I was in graduate school, but that was not my thesis. My thesis was in fluorine NMR, and that we didn't do that here. But I think that's one of the life's lessons is just because you get your PhD in one area, that really should not limit you to what you're doing as a career, okay? And my career has taken me all the way from doing, analytical research, analytical chemistry research, to doing mass spectrometry with biologists and working with material scientists and I built a neutron scattering facility. I mean, all these different things. So keep in mind that as you go through your graduate career, make sure that you don't just focus real narrowly, okay? You will in your thesis work, but go to seminars, teach yourself how to learn, read the literature, make sure that you know what's going on in the world, because you never know where a good idea is going to lead you, okay? So a good idea may completely change your research areas, so keep your minds open. I know it's hard when you're doing your PhD that you think you got your blinders on and you're just going forward. But keep your minds open, keep your eyes open for a new thing, because sometimes that new idea will just lead you to a whole new field. And an example that I have is I had a technician who was had a high school degree. She came here right when the lab opened. She was an ornery cuss. She did not like PhDs. She thought PhDs were book smart and not very smart otherwise. And she was passed around to all the new PhDs. And she worked with me the longest of anybody because I kind of understood where she was coming from. She was smart, okay? And at that time, technicians were not very well received, okay? They were considered to be just go to the lab and do your stuff and don't bother me type stuff. But she had an observation while I was gone out of town, that was so amazing. She had run a sample and she noticed something in the spectra and she showed it to me, and it was just unbelievable. It was, I figured out what it was. The observation that she made was real and it was profound, and it took my career a totally different direction. We ended up going someplace else. So going someplace else is part of that story I was going to tell you. But one of the things about this woman, Jerry was her name, is that we wrote the paper up. I wrote the paper up, put her name on the paper. And my division director said at the time, you have to realize this was 1980, he says, no, you don't put technicians' names on papers. And I said, well, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been here to see it. And she was the one who did it, but it was the culture at this laboratory and elsewhere that technicians were just hired hands and they were just doing their job. And I think one of the things that's changed and it's really, really good is that we include people on papers who've made significant contributions, okay, whoever they are, if they've made significant contributions. So she was really proud of that paper with her name on it. It was the first paper that she had had in 40 years, okay, all the things that she had done for other people, this was the first paper that her name was on. So one of the things that you have to think about is making sure that people get credit for helping you, okay, as you go through your career. And I think that, that was one of the things that I learned early on is it's not the degree that somebody has, it's the knowledge and the observational skills. So don't get that PhD glow about you and think that, only PhDs are worth being on your paper. I mean, it really is important. I mean, there are some people here at the laboratory that I never knew didn't have a PhD, but they were so much better educated than I was because they had experience that I didn't have. So one of the things I'd ask you to be careful of is being considerate, because I've seen some PhDs who just kind of dismiss, people. So be real careful, because those are the people who helped me be successful. Okay, a lot of those people. Let's see, I'm going through my notes that I wrote here. One of the things that is also important, I told you that I got involved with a lot of different people doing different types of science. To me, that was exciting. I didn't know anything about, mutagenesis of animals doing cancer studies and things like that. I'd never done anything like that. Got involved with people doing this in the biology division, got papers out on looking at, chemical causes for carcinogenesis in mice. We published a paper on science that had crickets that had 2 heads that were teratogens, exposed to chemicals that were teratogens. I get my name on so many different types of things, and it was because I talked to people, okay, and we'd start, just thinking about what could happen and everything, and good ideas begat other good ideas, and the next thing you know, we'd write a proposal together and get it funded. And so I ended up getting funding from National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health. I worked with people in the materials side. We got funding from all sorts of different places. And what happens is you build this network, okay? And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy most about a national laboratory environment is that it's not just me thinking up ideas for a small group of people to go off and do what I want to do. It's the fact that I can go and talk to anybody here at the laboratory and we can come up with ideas and we collaborate together. So National Laboratory has this teaming effort that sure makes raising money a lot easier. And I know that a lot of you who are thinking about going into research, you dread the idea that you have to write proposals. Well, I tell you, it's not hard if you've got extra people to help you, and getting ideas from other people and collaborating with people. It's very valuable, and I'll always cherish the collaborations I've had with people here at the laboratory. When I first came to the laboratory, I worked in a group that was very applied. I did applied research. We did things like blow up smoke grenades, colored smoke grenades, to find out what are the carcinogenic compounds in smoke grenades. And I also did a project for the customs people who had dogs. We were trying to figure out, do dogs really smell drugs? Okay, so we had dogs come on campus. I had lots of fun. We had lots of fun. That's in addition to all my gas phase ion physics that I was doing on the basic side of my career. But my boss was really one of these guys who wanted me just to stick my nose down, write proposals, bring in money, get the projects done, and repeat. And that's good. I mean, that's good. And I learned a lot about writing proposals and making sponsors happy all over the federal government. I had sponsors probably more than just about anybody around. But one of the things that he didn't like, he thought that belonging to professional societies and writing papers was very academic. He thought that that was not what I should do. He thought that my time would be better spent writing proposals, okay? I disagreed with him, okay? And I went out of my way to write papers, get them published, belonging to professional societies. I got very involved, not only joining professional societies, but I picked two out, the American Society for Mass Spectrometry and the American Chemical Society, and ran for office and got those sorts of things. Now, the bottom line is that it helped me with sponsors, okay? When you talk about doing this, that's one thing, is that the sponsors like to see their work published, okay? And that is very, very true, okay? Some of the people may not agree with me, but whenever I've had an applied project, the sponsors were very interested in the fact that I was well known, because they felt like that was something that when they start looking at who to fund, got two people with good ideas, but you got somebody who's written papers, you got somebody who's out there, well known in the community, they're going to lean your favor, okay, whether it's a sponsor or a reviewer on a proposal. So getting your papers out is just critically important, okay? It's important for you, okay, as a scientist, to get your papers out there. And I'm not talking about writing papers for volume's sake, okay? We don't want to write lots of papers that are shallow and not impactful, but writing good, solid papers that get your name out there, that establishes your reputation. Because I have read literally 1,500 or more proposals in my life for NSF and DOE and NIH and NCI and you name it. And you will, as a reviewer, you will look at people's publication records to see if they write good papers, okay? So that's something that you need to pay attention to. With respect to professional societies, I'm passionate about people getting involved in professional societies, and we're having this outside the hall here, tables to have you guys join a professional society. I found that there was a lot of good to be had as far as networking with people, understanding who my peers are, standing at a poster, talking to them, getting to know who they are, getting senior people to know me when I was younger. It was great. And so I had people who wrote letters of recommendations for me for my promotions, letters of recommendations for me to be on, panels and things like that. Those are things that are really important to your career. Getting to know people in your area of research, and letting them know who you are. And because when they read your proposal or they read your paper, they're going to say, well, I met that young person at the American Chemical Society meeting, thought they were really bright. And so you cannot dismiss how important these network connections are. So continue to make your network connections, even amongst yourselves here this summer. Keep making those connections. But it's very important to have people who will go to bat for you and make a recommendation. Serving on editorial boards, really important, okay? I tell my staff here at the laboratory, when people ask you to read a proposal or something like that, always say yes. The more things you read, the better off you are. But if you read proposals for the National Science Foundation or DOE or any place else like that, you learn what a good proposal looks like versus a bad proposal, okay? Good proposals are almost formulaic, okay? They're like cookie cutters. You could almost, put in the blanks and then fill in the blanks with what you're doing, because it's a way of communication. And when you read one, you'll see which ones are good and which ones are bad. So whenever anybody asks you to review a proposal, if you have to do it on Sunday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, do it, because it's worth your effort, okay? Read those proposals and take the time to do it. I can't think of anything more valuable than reading papers and proposals, because you learn how to write when you read, okay? The other thing is that I learned, the last biology class I took was in high school, okay? How good is high school biology? Not very good. But I am considered a biological mass spectrometrist. And I learned my biology by reading proposals, okay, and reading literature and working with people here. And it turns out that I was on the human genome study section for NIH. I was on the first human genome study section. And I watched history being made as some of the brightest minds in the country were on that study section with me, developing methods for sequencing DNA. So it was the coolest thing of my career. Took a lot of time. I had to read 120 proposals 3 times a year and go off to study section for a week to review those things. But it was worth every minute, and it helped shape my career. Okay, so again, reading, volunteering is a very important thing of what you're going to see. So what happened to me as I was going through here is that I was getting frustrated with my boss, who told me I was being too academic, and I was doing pretty good. And I went through kind of a midlife moment, which we all do, about, am I going to stay at the laboratory or am I going to leave? Okay, am I going to do something else? So about that time, I had offers from a couple universities to come be a professor. And I was thinking seriously about it. My husband said, "Go. I want to play golf. You get the big paying job. I'll go. I'll play golf." And I said, "No, that doesn't sound good." But anyway, so it was interesting because not my boss, okay, not my boss's boss, but a guy on another side of the laboratory who I had been talking to. He was kind of my mentor. He was the director at the ALD for biology. He told me, he says, "Boy, this is a dumb decision you're making." He says, "You're looking for something else to do with your life." He says, "I've got the answer." He says, "I want you to come to biology and be the deputy division director." And I thought, God, I don't want to be a manager. I really don't want to be a manager. And I didn't go to school for 9 years to become a manager. I want to be a scientist. I like doing science. I'm successful doing science. I know I like doing science. I'm good at it. You're going to be a manager. And I said, "No, I'm not going to be a manager." So after about 9 days of doing this, I finally, and really soul searching, I said, "Okay, I'll try it for 2 years. I'll try it for 2 years, but I'm not giving up my science. I'll come over and do that." Okay. And I found out that I liked it. It was interesting. I didn't give up my science. I was still PI on one major proposal, one big proposal. It was about a $6 million a year project. I gave up my other stuff and dropped being group leader. But I enjoyed being a division director. And then when they asked me to go to chemistry, go back to my home division and become a chemistry division director, which I thought, thank God, because I wouldn't want to manage the whole division of biologists, because they would outsmart me, on what I knew in biology. But I liked being chemistry division director. I think one of the things I like the best about managing is the fact that I can help young people be successful. Okay, take the skill sets that I've learned and help transfer them to the next generation. Okay, and I'll give you an example. Within a week of me becoming the division director for chemistry, I got a call from my sponsor from the Office of Basic Energy Sciences, who I'd never worked for before. I didn't know the Office of Basic Energy Sciences. And the guy called me and said, we're changing the way we do our proposals. We're going to have full-out, recompeted projects at the laboratory, site review, the whole thing. So you need to write full proposals for every ongoing project. We're going to bring people in. You're going to have to do an oral defense and everything. And he says, we're picking you because we know that you've done proposals for NIH and in the National Cancer Institute, and you know how to write a peer-reviewed proposal. So we want you to set kind of the bar of what we should expect people to do. So I had 100 grumpy people who, when I told them that we were going to have to recompete their projects, they said, oh God, the world's coming to an end. We're all going to lose our money. We're all going to lose our jobs and everything. And so we set about and we got them all going. And we were able to come through that review well. In fact, we came out with unbelievably, like 10% more funding because of the review. We did a really good job. And we since have kind of standardized this to kind of if you guys stay around during the fall, I give a talk on how to do a peer-reviewed proposal, and it's kind of like, proposals for dummies. Okay, we call it the 1040EZ form for proposals. But that's something that providing that knowledge to the next generation is really important. Okay, because coming out of graduate school, depending on how your professors work with you, they may or may not teach you how to write proposals. They may or may not teach you how to give a good presentation. And one of the things that I put a lot of emphasis on with my younger staff and even my seasoned staff, okay, I'm using seasoned as the euphemism for old, is to make sure that they're communicating in their written documents and in their oral presentations appropriately, because people don't learn this in school. I mean, how many of you guys have had your professor sit you down and teach you how to write a proposal? Yeah, so yeah, not much, okay. Or have you ever had to give a talk and have them rehearse you? Has anybody had their professor rehearse a talk? Okay, good, that's good mentorship. But a lot of people come here to the laboratory, PhDs and postdocs, who haven't had that experience. And so I think it's really important that we here at the laboratory help early career people do this. And I think one of the outstanding examples was, we just heard this week, that in the physical sciences directorate, we had 3 early career awardees announced, okay? And that's I can't tell you much detail because it's embargoed information. But the fact is that is a sign that the people in the physical sciences directorate are doing a good job of mentoring their people. Now, I don't know if the other directorates have heard anything or not. I only had one ALD tell me this. But, these are very rare. These are very hard to get. They're $500,000 a year grants for 5 years. I think it's single-digit success, and we got 3 of these. And so it's really, really good. So, when you go in your career, wherever you may end up, okay, some of you will go to industry, some of you will come to a national lab, some of you will go to academia. Find somebody that you can trust who will give you good feedback on your papers, on your proposals, and on your talks. I used to use my husband. He used to get tired of listening to me talk, but I would listen to him rehearse his talks. He'd listen to me give my talks. And it's one of these things that as you do it, you develop that pattern that helps you be successful in communicating. So don't discount the value of learning how to communicate well, not only to your peers, but to the general public. Okay, can you talk to your great aunt? Can she understand what you're doing? So use your time as you're here to talk to people about what you're doing. And I know that some of you will have some experience about doing 2-minute stand-up elevator talks. Very important to be able to communicate your science to more than just subject matter experts. Okay, so make sure you do things like that. Let me see where I am. Going to manage more people that you don't know anything about their science is really interesting. So one of my favorite things when I became the ALD, I actually managed a bunch of nuclear physicists. And nuclear physicists are special beasts. Anybody here a nuclear physicist? No? Down back here, we have a nuclear physicist. Yay! They do great science, and it's mind-boggling science, and it's very fundamental science. I just love to listen to folks who, when they're doing these experiments, it takes 10 years to plan the experiment, it takes 10 years to do the experiment, it takes 10 years to interpret the data for the experiment, and they're really patient. They're really patient. I'm not that patient. I like to see my results sometime within my lifetime. But the nuclear physics people, I really enjoyed learning that, and that's another thing it was just another example of opening your mind, learning to be flexible, learning to hear what other people are doing. I'm not a domain expert in double beta decay or neutron EDM, but I certainly appreciate what they're doing and enjoy working with them. So that again has been a real big part of my career. And then, when I was named the deputy, I got to even know more things. I've worked in a lot of areas that the lab does, but again, I can't tell you how exciting it is to be the deputy director and hear people come tell me what they're doing. I just get really excited when a PI comes in, and I get these occasionally. A lot of times people come in and want to complain. That's okay too, but I really get excited when somebody comes in and wants to tell me about the coolest results they've gotten, and it's still a great part of my life. So, always talk about how good your science is. It's really cool. Don't lose that enthusiasm. So, one of the things that I haven't touched on is work-life balance. So I talked about my husband. I didn't tell you that I have a daughter. Okay, so I have a daughter, and she's an only child, but we had a good time with her. She's a sassy little thing. She didn't want to become a chemist. She wanted to be a mathematician, went to school to become a mathematician, and ended up becoming a chemist, okay? And the reason she became a chemist was not because of us, because we took a very hands-off attitude on where she's going. And I would recommend that to all of you aspiring parents to be sometime in the next decade or so, I never directed her. She was a free spirit, and she did her thing. But her professor, when she went to college, really inspired her. It goes back to my very first comment to you guys is I became a chemist because my professor of freshman chemistry inspired me. Her freshman chemistry professor inspired her. And so she became a chemist. So there's 3 Dr. Buchanans in our household. And she went to graduate school, got her PhD. She married a chemist. I hate to say it. But I think graduate school now is the new bar. It used to be when I went to graduate school, everybody was married. Okay, like I wasn't married, my husband wasn't married, but everybody else was married. They had wives and kids and stuff because people got married early back then. When I got married at 24, everybody thought I was never going to get married because I was so old. And now people don't get married till they're almost 30, but almost everybody dates somebody in graduate school. So everybody they delay, so it's kind of like everybody goes to graduate school, and so they marry each other, and it is easier. Well, how many of you guys are dating somebody in your department? See, and I think some of you just haven't started dating yet. So no, but it is amazing how many people end up dual career, and so we as a laboratory in industry and universities are much more open to dual career people than they were back when I was looking for a job. And so my daughter and her husband, who's a theorist, he's not an experimentalist. That's his only weakness. He's a theorist. But they looked for jobs, and they were able to find jobs, pretty easily because they were both good. They had good backgrounds, good pedigrees, and they found jobs. So it works. Dual career. There's 2 generations of dual career chemists who've made it, and she now has a little girl. Okay, so she's got a 5-month-old girl. She's a real cutie. But anyway, so she's going through the dual career process. She's a professor at Vanderbilt, and her husband's on faculty too. So they're going through that process. So it can be done. So all of you guys who are worried about career and personal lives, it's very easy to do. The secret is find a good mate, okay? Somebody who will support you, okay, and help you through the rough spots and help you all the way through. That's the secret to my success. Is I had a very good husband and a very good daughter who kept me grounded, okay, and they helped me go through life successfully. And I don't know what the little baby's going to be. She's a little chunk for a 5-month-old. She's a fat little fella, and she's crawling at 5 months, and we figure she's going to be a rugby player. She looks down and crawling, and she looks like a rugby player. But in closing, I just want to give you a few things. This is what I give to all the group leaders that I work with here at the laboratory. They're the kind of the front line of our managers here. I think as a scientist, work really hard to build your reputation within your work environment, but outside. Those outside connections and that network, you cannot underestimate how critically important that is to your career. Those connections can help you if you want to change jobs, if you want to get promoted, if you're looking to get your proposal funded, those sorts of things. When you write proposals, write papers, give talks, give it to somebody that you trust that will give you critical advice on how to improve, okay? You, in turn, should return the favor. Help the other people do better at their work, okay? Build that trust with somebody, okay? And help them be successful, you be successful, and you'll have colleagues who you can stand behind for life. One of the things that, as you move into leadership, is that you will be viewed as a better leader if you show the staff, show your peers, that you're willing to give back. It's not all about you. You see professors at your universities who are, climbers, they want to just step all over everybody to get ahead. They don't have many friends. They don't have many colleagues. They don't have people who want to work with them. People who give back and help the other person are the ones who are going to be remembered. And like I say, jobs can get, your job can get very hectic, but I want you to remember you need to step back and think about your family and your friends and your personal life. It's not all about work, okay? You have to think about that other part of your life. It's really important, and I can't tell you how rewarding it is to have people who are around you, whether it's peers or family, friends, who support what you do and can get excited about what you do as much as you're excited, and so it's really great. So I wish you guys the best this summer, and I wish you the best on your careers. Be glad to take any questions. Yes. Yes.
Early in our careers, once we're jumping unknown territory,
Yeah.
in our projects here,
Yeah.
said like reading literature, reading proposals, those types of things. How did you go through your process early on in your career?
Well, I read journals. One of the things about electronic journals, it's easy to go to the journal that you're looking for. You're searching, there it is, pull it down, look at it. When I was in the old days, we had paper journals, and so I used to go to the library on Friday afternoons for a couple hours, and you pull down a journal, and I just kind of leaf through it, and I go, well, that looks interesting, and it's hard to do that electronically, okay, because you have to go through the whole journal, and it's not as easy as just leafing through. When I go to professional meetings, a lot of times I don't go to the sessions in my expertise. If I'm a mass spectrometrist, but I don't go to mass spectrometry things all the time. I'll go out to see polymer science, or I'll go out to see something else. Take that opportunity to go listen to talks, and get ideas for collaborations or a new direction in your science. I mean, every opportunity, take the opportunity of not just going deeper and deeper in your own area, which you have to do. You have to keep up with your field, but to branch out to these other areas. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you back there, and then we'll go to her. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned a professor that inspired you, really,
yes,
and just made you love the chemistry.
Yes.
What do you say if someone struggles to find something like that, like a professor that they ever get close with or ever inspires them a lot? I've had things close to that with tutors, but I'm just not sure. And how can you find that, or how can you look for it? How can you encourage the chances of that, if possible?
Well, I think one of the things, I think you have to kind of force the issue sometimes. Find somebody, hopefully somebody that's been, your professor who's lectured in class inspires you. A lot of people are really bad lecturers, and they just go through the motions, right? We know that. But to find somebody who is really dedicated to their students, okay? And I've known good people who are good scientists but do not do the mentoring thing. And I just encourage you to do that. Find somebody here. It doesn't have to necessarily be a professor at school, but if you find somebody here this summer who really inspires you, keep in contact with them and communicate with them so that you can use them as advisors. My professor at Wisconsin, the guy who was kind of the paternalistic type guy, he comes to my house every Thanksgiving for Turkey Day, okay? So he's still my friend, and I still use him as an advisor, okay? And so, find that person. I think it's really important to make that connection. And if you're having trouble finding somebody, keep looking, because I think you'll find that person that you can talk to, yeah. It's important. It's really important. Let's see here, this young lady, yeah.
Yeah, so some of your general thoughts, pacing of education. I personally had to graduate early, do accelerated grad program, but I've also told by a lot of people, don't rush it. So just kind of, what's your take on it?
I think it depends on the person. I've known people who, went to graduate school early, okay, like started into their research like the summer before classes really started, did very well. And I know people who've taken the summer off or taken a year off before they go back. I think it just depends on you, because one of the things that I think is important for everybody to know is that being a good scientist is not just intelligence, okay? It is not intelligence. The most intelligent people around do not make the best scientist, okay? The science comes from the heart, okay? You cannot force scientists to work any harder than they do. They are so empowered with this curiosity, that if you don't have that and it's not developing yet, step back a little bit and think about it. But when I got to graduate school, I knew, man, I wanted to do electrochemistry. That's why I went to Wisconsin, is they did electrochemistry, because that's what I did in undergraduate. And then I didn't do electrochemistry because my professor at Wisconsin was so charismatic. It was like, okay, I'm going to work for him, instead of this guy over here. And you just have to find that place. And I sorry I'm not answering your question, but I think it's very individualized. Okay, I will recommend for all of those of you who are in graduate school and postdoc, getting through graduate school is very hard. And that last 6 months is hell, okay? Because you're writing your thesis, you've got all the stress and strain and everything. Take a couple weeks off, okay? Go away, go to Hawaii or something like that. Don't rush into your postdoc, okay? Don't rush into your job. That job, your postdoc, will wait. You take the time off to mentally decompress. It's very important because, one, you're going to have to move. Okay, you have to move, then you have to go to Walmart and find all your trash cans and the shower curtains and stuff like that. Take a couple weeks off, move, and then take a break. Take a break, but don't rush into the next job. Okay, so that's one thing. Yes.
I'm curious, as someone who's interested both in science and in the managerial aspect potentially. You have a number of papers to your name, and I'm curious to what extent you were able to keep your hand in that game as you moved into the managerial portion of your career. Okay, so I kept in the research areas until I became the associate lab director, and I kept it up for about 4 years, and then I found out I just couldn't manage it. But I spent 20% time on research when I was the deputy division director, the division director, and the ALD. It's important to keep your science credentials up.
one thing, it's a lifeline. Okay, I felt like if I wasn't successful or I didn't like it, I had a way back, okay, into science, and that was good. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
What would you suggest for What would you suggest for narrowing down like a research topic? Like I'm pretty sure I want to do grad school, but I don't necessarily know a specific research topic.
Good question. Okay, so I didn't know. I thought I wanted to do electrochemistry because when I went to undergraduate school, that's what I did my research in, was in electrochemistry, and I thought that was the best thing that I could think of. It was so exciting. But when I went, my professors at Kansas told me, go to a good school that has a lot of options. Okay, I almost became an inorganic chemist because I liked the guy who was doing inorganic chemistry. So I narrowed it down to between inorganic and analytical, and then I ended up doing fluorine NMR with little mass spectrometry on the side instead of electrochemistry. And I think that when you go to any new environment during your educational process, again, you'll find it's likely going to be a person who just makes something sound like it's just wonderful, and you go, I want to do that. So a lot of people, when they go to graduate school, don't know specifically what they want to do. In fact, most graduate schools, good graduate schools, will say, we want you to interview X professors before you choose one. And they set a time where you go talk to, half dozen professors to see what they do, see if you got a personality fit, et cetera. When you go through that process, don't just talk to professors, talk to the students. Because if the professor is AWOL and isn't given any guidance, that may be okay for some, but it may not be right for you, okay? There may be somebody who's micromanaging you. That's not healthy either, So you got to find the right fit. And those graduate students will tell you the dirt. Okay, they'll tell you who's a good mentor, if the professor has money to support you, all the things that you have to worry about, right? Yeah. Did they keep you for 10 years? Those sorts of things. Students are really good about telling you the truth, okay? Yeah.
Grad school and doing all those for undergraduates going into the applying to grad school, say this fall,
yeah.
Right? What if you, question is the general idea of like the gap year taking more time to do that kind of searching? Understand that? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, I think sometimes if you're doing it to try to decide which graduate school to go to, I don't know. Again, if you're really not sure, usually your professors at your school, you go to Riverside?
Yeah.
I got lots of buddies there. What department are you in?
Physics and astronomy.
I can't help you there, but I know several of the professors in chemistry. Cindy LaRive, do you know Cindy? Yeah. So I know several professors. Diang Zhang, he's a computational chemist. Anyway, find somebody to help you, okay? Because I had at my undergraduate school, I remember there were 6 professors and I sat around a round table one day. And they said, okay, here's your offer letters. Okay, how are you going to narrow them down? Don't go there because they just use graduate students as TAs and they get rid of most of their graduate students, okay? They know the skinny on all these schools, okay? So they know which schools are the best ones that fit you. If your professors know you, they'll know where to send you, okay? Yeah, I think that, again, don't do it by yourself. Find those people who can do, people that you've taken classes from and things like that. They'll know where you fit. Yeah, they'll help you.
All right, everyone. I think Michelle has a pitch for another meeting, so let's say